Organic farming. Soil, oxygen, rain, and sunshine. It's odd to think that in America, this classic recipe for all manners of fruits and vegetables is experiencing something akin to a revival. I say odd because it's something that should have probably never disappeared from our skill set in the first place. But with the public becoming wary of things like pesticides, GMOs, and literally every type of food marketed toward children, they are clamoring for healthier and genetically unmodified options. Hence, the resurgence of organic farming. The drawback? It's time-intensive and labor-intensive, which ultimately results in the product being extremely expensive, which makes both corporations and consumers frown. This means if you want affordable, fresh produce, you just might have to make it yourself. And that's not as scary as it sounds, because elsewhere in the world, organic farming has been a staple of the local economy for quite a while, like thousands of years. And we could probably learn a lesson or two from these guys. To see how different cultures handle their organic farming, I'm heading down to Antigua, Guatemala to get my hands dirty. Antigua, Guatemala. My first impressions are raining, which is a bummer, but I'm not deterred. I'm eager to get out of the myriad of cars and planes it took to get here and do a little exploring.
I think I hear drums. Is that cotton candy?
It was, but that wasn't all. So I had to stop 6 people before I found someone who could speak English. But when I asked them what was going on, they told me that today is the Independence Day from Spain for all of Latin America.
So we're here in the Central Park. We've got bands here, and it's going to be like a battle of the bands right here in Central Park.
The energy in the city is electric and extremely contagious. I find myself just as excited as the locals about the Independence Day for a country I'm not even from. Everywhere I look, people are smiling and reveling in the freedom that their ancestors fought for. But being here in the town centers revealed one thing to me. It's that the people here are passionate, and that passion is mirrored in their enthusiasm and in their architecture, which is saturated with classical Spanish Baroque styles and the seductive destruction of past earthquakes and hurricanes. Many of these buildings are from the 15 to 1600s, and fortunately for us, they've been perfectly preserved due to INSECO declaring the city as a World Heritage Site. I've been to many cities all over the world, but I can't think of any that have this much character set against such a dramatic backdrop. The aesthetic experience is almost a religious one. You feel utterly transported, not to another country, but to another time and place that seems could only exist within the pages of a novel that has Fabio on the cover. Now, before I left, I did do some research on Guatemala, and when you see these people celebrating in the streets, you begin to understand it's not just their separation from Spain that is at the root of it all. Ever since their independence, there has been unrest in the country. As if the earthquakes, hurricanes, and volcanoes weren't enough, the country was rocked by violent social unrest and a succession of dictators who were sometimes helped by a much too involved U.S. government looking to retain their banana imports monopoly. For about 40 years, from the 50s to the 90s, Guatemala was the source of several violent coups and one extremely gruesome civil war. I have a friend whose father-in-law lived through that civil war in the 80s. Originally from Texas, he moved to Guatemala and ended up staying there. So tell me, what was it that caused the civil war?
These were communist guerrillas instigated by Cuba, and they were wanting to make Guatemala another satellite country to the Russian communism as Cuba was. I know that they killed a lot of our pastors that we had out there. They would burn down the little villages, and they would make everybody go live in the jungles. So the military committed atrocities. The guerrillas committed atrocities. The guerrillas would come into a village, and they would say to all the young people, okay, all you young boys, you come with us. But wait a minute, parents, no, I don't take our son. No, you're coming with us. If you don't, we'll kill your mother, your daddy, your grandmother, your grandfather. We'll kill all your family. So he goes. A few days later, the army comes through. Says, where are your sons? They're not here. Where did they go? Well, they left with some men. So with the guerrillas. And so the military would kill them.
All of that nonsense lasted until 1996, when the United Nations brokered truces between the warring rebel forces and the government. Since then, it has experienced large economic growth due to tourism and, most notably, agricultural exports. So with the farming sector accounting for 2/5 of the exports and half of the labor force, it's clear the area is perfect for farming, except here in Antigua. Do you remember that part earlier where I said volcanoes? Yeah. There are 4 volcanoes that take up a lot of real estate on the Antigua skyline. Not only that, but they are all still incredibly active. They play a big part in what makes the type of organic farming they do here so remarkable. So of course, I couldn't come to an area with 4 active volcanoes and not climb at least one of them. And to make things more interesting, I picked Pacaya, the most active out of all 4. It most recently erupted in 2014, raining ash down in Guatemala City, Antigua, and Escuintla.
I've been a lot of places, seen a lot of things, but I've never been on the side of a volcano, an active volcano before. And you can feel the heat on your face. It's really warm as we get closer to the top crater here. It's pretty awesome. Even small eruptions can wreak havoc on surrounding communities. Pacaya here behind me is constantly in like a state of erupting. Just in March of 2014, Pacaya blew its top. It went 500 meters into the air. It went for miles. The ash was just strewn about. And when it lands hot, it can destroy the crops, but it also puts holes into the roofs of their homes. And it creates a really bad living environment for the families.
The sheer power and devastation that this thing could unleash at any time commands a respect not often encountered in the natural world. Hurricanes and tornadoes are incredibly destructive, but few ecological wonders are able to harness so much power to hold on to until just the right or wrong moment, and all while being right in the middle of everyday life. So how do local farmers cope with this phenomenon? It's a unique challenge that has an elegant and transplantable solution. To show me how the locals are fighting back is Bill Horan, president of Operation Blessing International, a nonprofit who is helping farmers recover their crops and showing them better methods of sustainability.
All right, Bill, so I've got to ask you, these people have been farming since before the times of Jesus. What new tricks do you have, and why is it so important for them to learn it?
Well, there's a volcano about an hour and a half away from here that blew up about 2 years ago. The lava didn't come out, but millions of tons of ash turned the sky black for days, and it just fell down on all the communities downwind from the volcano. The little village we were working in wound up with 3 feet of ash over the whole town.
Wow.
So all the crops were smothered, and the people didn't know what to do. I mean, these are poor people that depend on those crops. So our agronomist came in and said, well, I know a technique that we can still grow crops this year and not have to worry about trying to shovel, thousands of tons of ash out of the way. And he showed them how to build these raised beds. We put in drip irrigation, used organic fertilizer, organic insecticide, and he taught those folks how to do it. It was such a sensational hit with the people in the town. They all wanted one in their backyard, which they have now. Mm-hmm. And it encouraged us to build this training facility. If it worked there, it'll work anywhere in Guatemala or anywhere in almost any country where we have this type of climate.
At some point, I thought it would be a good idea to ask Bill if they use any chemicals in their farming process. His response was emphatic.
No chemicals. We don't allow any chemicals on this property. I went through the whole organic gardening thing back in the 60s and along with a lot of my contemporaries, right? I wish I could remember more of it. But back then, unless you really knew your stuff, you weren't very successful. Well, this has been brought to a very high level here by Operation Blessing in Guatemala. So this thing is 6 meters long. We've got these PVC pipes, 5 layers of PVC on both sides.
Okay.
So it's always both sides. So we've got 10 horizontal pipes. Each horizontal pipe's got 30 plants. So we have 300 plants in a 20-foot area. So most people, even if they have a little tiny little backyard, they got 20 feet back there. And the beauty of this, Tony, in this technique is you don't grab this lettuce and jerk it out by the roots to harvest it. You're going to peel off this leaf, and you use that to eat or to sell, and the interior leaf just keeps coming and coming and coming. People can sell this for real money.
Yeah.
And these people are, they're broke all the time. It gives them a chance. What could a farmer sell? He spends all his time keeping his family fed. Now he's got something to sell. That's one of the
Bill tells us of a place we can go to see these techniques in action. So we pack it in and head back to the hotel to prepare for tomorrow's long journey up to a mountainside farming community. And after an exhausting day of watching other people working hard on the farm, I decided it was high time I sit down for a cup of world-renowned Guatemalan coffee.
You can make some good Guatemalan coffee at home, but it just pales in comparison to having it here in Antigua, where you've got the sights and the sounds and the beauty just surrounding you. It just kind of enhances the flavor.
In fact, it was so irresistibly good, I decided to have another cup. And another. And another. The next morning we set off for Panamache, which sits on the south side of Volcano de Agua, right in its spew zone. But surprisingly, it wasn't this volcano that recently caused them trouble. It was Volcano de Fuego, 10 miles to the west, that blew its top in 2012 and covered the entire community in volcanic ash. Their crops were obliterated by the torrent of black snow, and with it, a lot of their livelihood. That's exactly what happened in the case of Lionel, a farmer who relies on his crops to feed and provide for his family. He has invited myself and Geraldine Amata, who is Operation Blessing's Guatemala director, to his small plot where he is utilizing the raised bed methods.
Did he farm here? Because, the soil here, this is all like volcanic rock here.
The land and the ground, it's not fertile because it's all made of these ashes that are coming down from the volcano. So they practically cannot raise anything on that. So we brought an agronomist. He designs these raised beds, and he mixed the good soil with sand and other things, and that's the way he is growing all this kind of vegetables. As you may see, 1 year ago and after that, they can produce a lot of things, celery and beans and corn, and a lot of vegetables that they were not used to eat.
Okay, so this method is seriously effective. And it's amazing to see firsthand not only what it can do for a family, but for a community. Guatemala is a fertile land loaded with potential and seriously killer coffee. They've been farming this land for thousands of years. Despite all the obstacles set against them, they have found a way to survive. There's no telling when or where the next eruption will take place. And it's tragically unfair that the people, whose roots here date back nearly a millennia, should be saddled with such a burden. But they are armed with new techniques to revitalize not only their country's agriculture, but also their own livelihood. And who knows, maybe even inspire a few of us along the way.